Today I've got a massive set of mods planned for the WRX. I've got a full set of coilovers from MCA suspension and a brand new set of wheels as well, which is going to mean a much more aggressive tyre and wheel setup on the car. So when choosing the coilovers, MCA were massively helpful in that decision. So initially I thought I was going to go for their Pro Street series, which is more of a street car comfort based setup. But after talking to them and talking through what tyre and wheel combination I wanted and what I wanted out of the car, they recommended going for the Pro Sports, which are a firmer, more aggressive suspension, but then putting a slightly softer spring rate in. So they've set them up with a 7 kilo spring in the front and a 5 kilo spring in the rear. So in the box, we've got our pamphlet pack from MCA, and that's got all the details of the suspension, what they've set the damper to, spring rates. It's got all the setup instructions and everything you need in there, plus a whole bunch of stickers. And then we have the coilovers themselves. So the coilovers are going to give me full control over my suspension, allowing me to adjust the ride height of the car and also control the camber, which means I'm going to be able to fit some more aggressive wheels. And I'm hoping it's just going to improve the overall driving experience of the car compared to now with the lowered springs on it. For the wheels, I've gone with a Rota G-Force in matte bronze. They're an 18 by 8.5 with a 44 offset. They're a really nice 10-spoke, simple design with a bit of concavity to the spokes, which in my opinion looks really good. The matte bronze also looks really good. It's got a bit of a gold fleck to it, and I think it's going to work really well with the black car. I really like that matte bronze and black combination, and the sort of fleck in the wheels is going to go really well with the gold fleck in the Java black paint on the WRX. So first thing is to get these wheels loaded up, get them down to the tyre shop, and get them wrapped in some new rubber. Okay, well, I've had a set of Michelin Pilot Sport 5s put on the wheels. They're a 245/40, so we've got an extra 30mm width in the tyres that are currently on the car. The Pilot Sports are an excellent performance street tyre with a good reputation for both dry and wet grip. So keen to get these on the car. They're also a really good looking tyre, which might be a bit of a weird thing to say, but they've got this sort of textured pattern around the logos, and it looks and feels like velvet. I'm not sure how they've done it, but I reckon it looks awesome. The boys at the tyre shop were frothing it as well. So yeah, and the wheels I reckon look even better now they've got the tyres mounted on them. So this is the current wheel and tyre setup on the car. It's got a set of work emotions on it. They are 17 by 7 plus 47. So aftermarket wheels, but in the stock size. And it's got a set of 215/45 tyres on it. I actually quite like the wheels, but they just don't fill out the guards very well. And I think it's time for something a bit more aggressive. You can see here what I mean. There's just no way that this wheel and tyre combination would fit with how low the car is. That does give you a bit of an idea though, what it's going to look like fitted up. And I'm really stoked with that. All right, enough looking at the wheels. It's time to crack on with the install. So at the moment, the top of the front guard is sitting at about 625mm, and the top of the rear guard is sitting at about 615mm. You can see how worn my old tyres are, but look at the difference in the width of those new ones compared to the old ones. Massive. I'm going to hit each of the bolts with some of this WD-40 penetrant just to help get them off. Starting off by taking out your ABS and brake line holders. Then undoing the main bolts. Undo the top hat bolts.
Eventually.
So here's a comparison of the stock shock with the lowering spring versus the new coilover. You can see how much more compact the new coilover is. A few other little pieces came in the kit from MCA as well. So that was in the other box. We've got the extenders for the damper control on the rear shocks, bolts, this little tool for putting in a little insert into one of the bolt holes, the C-spanner, and the Allen key for adjusting the height. Now, because of the camber washer on the lower part of the coilover, they use a smaller bolt. So I've got to fit the provided sleeve into here. They provide a little tool for that to resize that hole. So I'm not going to adjust that camber washer. I'm going to leave that for when I get in a wheel alignment if it's needed. I can now fit the front coilover. Can now install the lower bolts using the new one provided by MCA for the top. I can then reinstall the bolts that hold the brake line and the ABS line. So that's the first coilover installed. So in here we've got the height adjustment. You undo this Allen key to loosen it, and then you can twist it either way to raise or lower the car. So on the top there's camber adjustment, and there's also dampening adjustment, 12 different settings. Each one's got a click. So the camber adjustment and dampening I'm going to leave alone for now. With the height, I'm just going to take a measurement of where it's at so I can compare it against the others, but also have that as a base. So just measuring the height between the spring perch and the base, and I'm getting about 58 mil. So I'll just use that as a reference moving forward. I can now move on to the exciting part of putting the first wheel on. Well, that looks wicked. Sitting pretty good. I could probably bring it down a little bit more. I'm going to leave it for now until I do the others. For a bit of comparison, the bottom of the guard is now sitting at about 660. So I've come up about 30, 35 mil. But yeah, I reckon could probably drop it another 5 to 10 mil. But first, I'm going to get all the other coilovers installed and all the wheels on. So let's cut to a little time lapse.
Just make a move and break the tension. Never let me go. I can see you're skeptical. You could have a little faith, it never killed nobody. What you waiting for?
Okay, I finally got it all done. That was a massive day, way bigger than I thought. And that very, very last bolt just tested me so much. It probably took me about 20 to 30 minutes to get that off. Impact was doing nothing. I ended up getting the handle off my jack and using that for extra leverage. Finally, it got loose. But yeah, that one was very tough to get out. Also made a couple of mistakes along the way. So on one of the front coilovers, I didn't line the top hat up, so the camber adjustment was in the wrong direction. So I had to pull that back out and put it back in. And then on the rear, I didn't realize that they had specific sides they had to go on for where the brake line holder goes. So I put one in the rear and then the brake line wouldn't clip up. So I had to take that back out and then put the right one in. But other than that, super stoked with how the car is looking and the fitment. I'm going to pack up here, probably take it for a quick little drive and just check everything. And then I've got a wheel alignment booked in a day or two. So they'll go over it properly. So once I get that done, I'll go for a proper drive, give you my thoughts on the coilovers and how it compares to the springs it had in it. And I'll show you the final fitment as well. So I ended up taking the car for a quick drive the other night after finishing the install, and I was getting quite a lot of scrubbing in the rear. So I made a few adjustments to the camber and height to try and address that. Let's jump back and have a look at what those adjustments were. You can see that tyre's sitting slightly tucked within the guard there. That probably shows it a bit better, although it might not look like it's tucked under there on the camera. And because of that, and because it's running the stock camber, it scrubbed a little bit on the sidewall here when I took it for that quick test drive. So gonna just raise this a little bit, maybe 3 to 5 mil as a ballpark, and add a bit of camber as well. So take a base measurement there so I know what my starting point is. Undo the Allen bolt that holds the spring perch tight. And then I just want to twist this to raise it. I'm going to go for about 5 mils. Okay, that's about 5 mils. Tighten the Allen key back down. So I need to make sure that height adjustment is the same on the other side. I'm also going to adjust the camber, but I'll show you that on the front because it's a little bit easier to see. So with the car back down, you can now see I've got a bit more clearance in here, and I ended up going with 1 degree of additional camber. So now with the car jacked up at the front wheel off, I can come up to here. I can then loosen these 4 Allen bolts. And then I can grab the shock and move it into the position I want. So if I move this top this way, it's going to add negative camber. There's a little mark in here, and that shows you your position against this guide rule. And there's a center mark, which is where it's set at the moment. So if I get this from underneath, I can just shift it. And they say that each of the bigger lines is 5 mil, and that's about 1/2 degree of camber. So if I move it by about 2 of those, it's going to be 1 degree of additional camber. Now that I've had the wheel alignment done, I've had a chance to get out and go for a proper drive. So now I'm going to get out and talk about how I've found the coilovers and what my thoughts are. Now the first thing I noticed was that the ride was both harsher and softer at the same time. Now, that probably doesn't make a whole heap of sense, but what I mean by that is just regular driving, you feel the road a lot more. It is like a harsher ride, but when you hit bumps, the bump absorption and bump sensitivity is a lot better. So when you're hitting sort of more severe bumps, you're not really feeling those as aggressively as you used to with the lowered springs in before. So one example of that, there's a low bridge that I come into on a road I drive a lot, and I used to have to come down to like 30 k's an hour, otherwise you would just feel it slap through the dash. And now with the coilovers in, you can hit that at probably 60 or 70 k's an hour and it feels fine. The next thing I noticed as well is the handling has drastically improved. And I guess that's to be expected with going to a much wider tyre and wheel setup, a much better tyre. But I think the coilovers are playing a big part in that as well. The car feels a lot more planted coming through corners, and it just feels just a lot more stable. For example, coming into a roundabout, if you're doing like a right-hand turn or doing a U-turn through a roundabout, if you sort of pushed it a little bit, you knew where the edge of the traction point was and where the car wanted to let go a little bit. Not that it was going to, but now with the new setup, I sort of can't feel that point. I feel like it's just wants to stick to the road. And it's interesting because I used to think the car handled really well before, but it's just night and day difference with how much better the performance is. Now I have had a chance to play around with the damper settings as well. And at first I had it set up on the sort of street settings they recommended, and then I changed it to the track settings. And driving around the urban streets, I felt like I couldn't really tell a difference. So I left it in that track setting and I took it for a proper sort of spirited drive around these backcountry roads, and it became very apparent very quickly how harsh the ride was with the damper set all the way to the sort of track setting. And I only probably lasted about 20 minutes before I pulled over on the side of the road
and dialed it back to the street settings, and I haven't changed it back again. And I think on the street, you don't really notice the extra performance that dialing it all the way up to that track setting gives you, but you definitely notice the harshness on the sort of back roads. And you can feel like the texture in the road changing when the road pavement's not as good, or it changes from like an asphalt to a bitumen spray seal. You can feel the difference in the aggregate, and that was just really dialed up to another level when I had it set to those track settings. But overall, super stoked with how it handles now. And really, I just wish I'd made this change sooner and put the coilovers in a lot sooner, because it's just a completely different car to drive now.